Well, good morning again. Let's get started. We've got an hour and a lot to share with you in that time frame. We appreciate your time, as I said before, and we're grateful that you could join us. I'm also grateful to Jared Reed from the Motorists Group for agreeing to come and share their experiences implementing ICM and a CM8 environment. Again, I'm Stephanie Coates with the Dayhuff Group, and with me is Dwight Bowman and Sarah Exey, our marketing specialist. Basically, we're going to go through three perspectives: the insights on implementing ICM, the lessons learned, and how to realize the promise of CM8. And as all of you know, these platforms were invested in a real long time ago, and some of them have been embellished and some have not. Some of you have looked at other technologies and thought if only. So today we're going to tell you a little bit about, what can be done and the lessons that were learned. They were many. We probably won't be able to cover them all today, but we'll do the best we can. Right now I'd like to introduce Jared Reed. He's the project manager at Motorists Mutual. He's got 16 years of PM experience. And I want to share with you right up front that the success that we had with this implementation was greatly achieved because of Jared quarterbacking that project from the motorist side. And we're real grateful, I'm sure IBM as well, because as you all know, this was numero uno. This is the first time this has ever been done. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jared, and he's going to start to walk you through this experience and what you have to look forward to and how you can plan for success. Jared?
Thank you very much for those kind words. The way I see the value that I bring to teams is simply to understand the vision, help the team to recognize that vision, and to facilitate them to accomplish our goals. So for me, I'm always going to turn around and turn that credit back to the team that we had. That includes our partners at Dayhuff, it includes our partners at IBM, and last but certainly not least, it includes the people that were involved from Motorists. I need to preface this. I joined in 2012. I joined Motorists after the sales cycle and the selection of ICM. And after all of that was already in place, what I can tell you that I learned during the engagement was that we have multiple workflow solutions across the enterprise. This engenders certain questions, certain realities. It's more costly to maintain. It impacts our speed to market and our ability to deliver product to the customer in a predictable fashion, thereby impacting customer satisfaction and obviously long-term scalability. I'm certain that the people on the phone understand the underpinnings behind those statements, so I'm not going to go into any detail there. As far as key selection criteria, once again, on this one, I wasn't here for the sales cycle, but I did learn enough during the engagement to understand some of the key points. One of them was that motorists didn't want to be locked into the position of having to always use IT resources or IT developers to be able to produce workflow solutions for the business. They wanted some flexibility there, whether that was training analysts to be solution developers, or potentially even training people in the business to develop their own workflows. They wanted that flexibility. They also found it appealing that they didn't have to jump right away to doing a conversion off of the CM8 platform. Configurable user experience. I'd actually like to let Dwight speak to this if he would.
Sure, and we'll talk more about this when we get into the architecture of ICM on CM8 somewhat later, but the ICM case manager allows a much more configurable user experience, so each player or each role in a application could have a customized screen that matches what they need as compared to everyone using the e-client or
And this is Stephanie. I'll take the next one. This seamless integration to CM8. There's always the promise. There's always the hope that things will be seamless. But as Jared's going to talk about later on in the presentation, the things that you need to do to make that more seamless. Technologies are technologies, and these environments are very complex. And the first time something's done, all the scripts aren't always available. They have to be developed as you go. So we'll talk a little bit about, what it's going to take to be successful. Nothing is really truly seamless, and nothing's ever easy the first time, but we're here to tell you that it can be done, and it can be very productive and very promising for your organization.
Out of the box reporting. Anybody want to comment on that one?
Yeah, that was another thing that during the sales cycle, when we do the operational walkthrough and we learn what the challenges are for the organization, or even say what some of the plans are that don't have an execution plan. Usually there's this reporting that rears its ugly head that says, we need reports, we need them quickly, we need them accurate from one source of the truth, and we don't want to have to ask the IT department to, script and pull a report, put it in a format that's understandable when the content of it is no longer applicable to my challenge.
Lessons learned. We have a lot of lessons learned, more than we have time to share here in this presentation. But anybody who's familiar with Scrum and scaling agile projects or scaling agile teams across the enterprise will get what I'm talking about. It's pretty simple. So engage with your partner. You know pretty much what it is you need to do. You want to get in there. You want to do some release planning. You know the people. You got all the right people in there. You plan it out pretty much for 6 weeks. You know what you're going to do, and then you just keep repeating until you're finished. It didn't end up working that way, and there are several reasons. One of the first reasons, I won't have Sarah go back to the slide, but on the key selection criteria where we talked about a seamless integration, it wasn't seamless. We did it, and we learned a lot, and now a lot of things are documented and understood better that weren't before. But like Stephanie said, when you go out to do something for the first time, regardless of how well you think you understand it, you're going to find things that you didn't expect to find. So it sort of threw our, how should I say this, our cadence. It threw our cadence off. One of the things that did not happen in this engagement that I definitely recommend, and I can't recommend it strongly enough to anyone who chooses to do it, to integrate ICM with CM8, is to assemble your team first. Application lifecycle management practices and all of our stuff's in order, and we understand the prerequisites, and all of our databases are at the right versions that we want them. Everything's patched, everything's in place, we're good to go. If that's the case, you can bring your partner in and you can plan for that, and we can even talk about the fact that you can actually look at it and say, okay, then we probably have, depending on the details, we might have 18 to 21 weeks of work, whatever that might be, and we can plan this out in iterations, and we can look at integration points, and everything will go relatively smoothly. I highly recommend that approach, by the way, if anybody's wondering. The other, actually, Dwight, would you like to comment?
If you don't have that in place up front, then the project itself needs to either get that in place first. So you need to, before you start the case manager implementation project, you need to make sure that you back up and get everything in place, or you extend the length of the case manager project to address all the prerequisites that need to happen first.
And this is part of mitigating risk and managing expectations, because most of the time these transformational projects don't take place, for the fun of it. It's not, fancy technology days when you could buy stuff because it sings and twirls. The business has made a case. They have a challenge, and the solution is needed. And usually by the time that decision's made, they need it now. And if you set the expectation that you're going to be upgrading some things and then installing some software and making it talk nice, and then starting to develop some workflows, the business is expecting that solution and the time allotted, and you get these surprises and you do not deliver on that dream, everything starts to go sideways. And when you're working like that, you're working under the gun, because the business is screaming, "What the heck? We spent all this money, and where's the beef?"
On that statement, where's the beef? I remember that commercial from when I was a kid. The installation, the integration, you can do it now, no problem. I mean, all the problems that we went through, they've been documented now. So, that stuff it's not really, if I were doing this again, I wouldn't be concerned. But do not stop at thinking about the installation and the integration. Make sure you're also including the business up front and early. Make sure that you're planning ahead for what you're actually going to do with it once you're done, and that those people, those teams that are going to be doing that work, delivering product and handling the application lifecycle management for your new system, that all that's in place, so that once you say we're done, we're in, you can actually quickly start putting something into production and deliver to your customer, and start to do so predictably. So think about that time to market, think about your deployment pipeline, think about what that framework is going to look like for you to interact with your customer or customers, and how you're going to deliver those solutions, those products. I would also look at everything from when you're thinking about the project, both short-term and long-term, look at it from a team of teams approach, rather than saying, we got a project, we got to do a thing, and we're going to grab a bunch of people, and these people are going to do it, and then they're going to go away. For this particular, for what we're talking about here, you probably actually got 3 teams. You're talking about the team that's going to make sure that you've cleaned house. You're talking about the team that's going to be working, doing the upgrade and the install. You're talking about the team that's going to be delivering the actual product to the customer, and maintaining the system as you go. And I could probably talk forever and bore people at some point, so especially some of the people from Motorists on the phone that know I'll get on my soapbox, so I'll stop there. Okay, how we got there. This is a list of a lot of the things that we did, but not everything. There are things such as, I'll just point out some of the things that I think are missing. We actually resolved a lot of defects that we had in our environments along the way. So that goes to the cleaning house aspect. We did some application architecture refactoring to improve the way things worked in our environment. We saw it as an opportunity to do that, so we did that. That's more cleaning house, things that they were good to do, they were smart to do, they were benefits to motorists, but could they have been done in a different order? I think that's what I'm trying to say. I'd actually like to let Dwight start to speak to these, but if you can take care of the prerequisites and get them out of the way so that you have your foundation in place, then you've got your team 2, which is going in to do the actual installation.
Yeah, right. You're right, Jared. The 12 production deployments that we had at Motorist points back to that approach. As a part of the project, we had to get everything upgraded and in place, and we are making this look even simpler than it really was with the list of prerequisites that we addressed here. But everything under the upgrade CM8, as you look, even before we actually upgraded to CM8, we actually had to upgrade AIX, and Motorists people had to. So before we as Dayhuff, your partner, could get in and help you with the CM8 upgrade, you had to get an AIX upgrade. And I know there was 1 or 2 steps that had to happen before the actual AIX upgrade could happen. And we didn't get that granular in our chart here, but there was a lot of moving parts that had to happen before we could install and configure WebSphere network deployment, which is what Case Manager was going to sit on top of. The WebSphere ND and the Case Manager database environment and the common LDAP server environment were all prerequisites that were specific to the Case Manager implementation project. People on the phone might have other environments like staging and QA, and each of those have these complexities of the multiple deployments that would need to go through.
And suffice to say that those of you on the phone that are technologists and even the business stakeholders, these platforms, most of them have been in place for a very long time. And, don't fix it if it ain't broke attitude gets you to that point where you're not at the right place you need to be for the platform to function smoothly and for you to not be fraught with, administrative issues that you wouldn't have if you had everything up to date. So, if nothing else, thinking about an ICM project and the housekeeping that it takes to get ready for the right environment to get started is going to be a good place for you to be, even if you didn't go forward with an ICM project right away. It wouldn't hurt to get your house in order now.
If you take this, I may be going off topic here, I hope not, but it works in my mind. If you take this from a product development flow perspective, as opposed to I just don't want this project to be too stinking big. You can, I guess what we're trying to say is you can break this stuff up into discrete pieces of value that you could flow to those teams. And it's also important, one of the things I don't think we've mentioned yet is to, while you're doing that, whether you do it as one big project, as multiple projects, or you have dedicated teams that you're flowing this work to, making sure that everyone understands all these pieces and parts so that you can set the right expectations. So that because somebody says, oh yeah, we started that project, and 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks later, they're like, well, where is it? Why isn't it done? Just making sure that they understand the value that they're getting, and they can predict when they're actually going to get it.
The lessons learned that really I think was things that both the Dayhuff group and Motorist came out of this project, and things that we in general would recommend for anyone looking to implement this. So some of these are specific to what we did at Motorist, but they're generalized because everyone should be looking at this. That starting out of the box and expanding agilely, there's capabilities that are quick to deliver with Case Manager, and so starting and looking at the implementation and keep it as straightforward as possible, and then over time grow into the customized or very configured solution. It's something that Motorist is in the process of doing right now. The Engage IBM product team in planning is something that I know you saw a lot of value in, bringing the enablement team in, so I'll turn it back over to you to talk to that.
I would like to speak to that. That is something that I've never had a partner do for me before in working with IBM. So I'll take this opportunity to say thank you to Dayhuff and to Stephanie for helping to establish that relationship with. I don't know that I heard Marty log in, but Martin Shramo from IBM and his people. They are very helpful to us in helping us move forward with this product and in getting over some of those unknowns that we encountered. Having people that I would say the best of the best that we could get to help us answer questions. We had them, and that was extremely helpful.
And I think I'd like to say, as all of you know, dealing with IBM or any other large company that has multiple technologies, they're siloed. And if you call in and you think you have a problem, you've triaged it in your shop and you think it's, an ICM or a CM8 problem, and it turns out to be a WebSphere or a Unix problem, you get the siloed resources. So if you have an advocate, and for a project that's as complex as this is, you can hit the ground running and you can obviate all of these, potential delays in getting support and getting help and guidance. And I strongly urge you to always engage with your IBM team and your partner team to make sure that you have those advocates to help you so that you don't run into a rut and you can't get out.
On this next one, the prototype along the way, the thing that pops into my mind for that are people like that we're going to want to be solution developers at Motorists, and having those people, like we have some. Actually, I think we have some on the phone today. Tina Lewin and Tyler Seifring. They are having them. Knowing now, if I knew then what I know now, I would have wanted everybody who was going to be a part of that final eventual delivery of product to the end customer to be training on the product, to be developing workflows that they could eventually, once development was set, they could put it into development, they could run it through, they could say, yeah, it worked, or no, it didn't, what do we need to change? And then keep following that all the way through test, all the way into production, so that as soon as production, we said, was solid, we could almost immediately follow up, test it with something that we knew that we wanted to use in production, say yes, all the bells and whistles work, and our end customer could quickly see value realized from all of our efforts. So I strongly recommend that you do not wait to bring those people in the beginning and keep them involved throughout the project.
And I will just say, as the director of sales for the Dayhuff group, pick somebody that's done this before. We have a 17-year experience as a CM8 premier partner with IBM, as well as the certifications ever since the acquisition in P8. And so when you're talking about complex environment like this, a transformational project that has many different moving parts and different under the covers engines, you need somebody that knows what makes all of that tick and makes and how you can integrate all that together, and that is going to be really important. So make that one of your considerations, please. So part of realizing the dream of ECM, I keep talking about how these systems were put in a long time ago. If I had a greenfield opportunity right now for an ECM solution, I'd be reinforcing the importance of developing an ECM Center of Excellence mentality. Even if you don't have the support, the financial commitment, or the resources to build out a Center of Excellence, if you have this in mind, think about the goal and strategize along these three pillars, thinking about the vision, assessing what the business drivers are, and put your plan together. Think about the ECM governance. Make sure that the foundation is developed so that it fits into your reference architecture, that everything that you're going to do doesn't fly in the face of the stack that you already have invested in. And then from an implementations perspective, to Jared's point, not everything can be a cookie cutter, but and not everybody has the same architecture in mind or delivery model in mind. Some people want IT to own the development of the workflow. Some people want the business stakeholders to be empowered to manage some of that. So decide what your implementation architecture looks like and make sure that you develop it in such a way that it is a repeatable process, and that regardless of, remember, this is enterprise content management. So if you're an insurer and you've got life and you've got property and casualty and you've got commercial and personal, all these different business units have different sets of talent, different business drivers, and it's going to be important that is an enterprise content management platform, that you have those processes in place that allows you to deliver on the dream regardless of the business stakeholders' requirements, that it's a repeatable process, and that it's easy to support. Don't build yourself a nightmare. And we can help you with this as well. We've developed a methodology along with IBM, and feel free to reach out if you'd like the complete deck, and I'll send it to you.
So we've talked about how Motorists got to Case Manager on CM8 and why Motorists moved to Case Manager. I'm going to step back here at a bit higher level and in some ways a bit deeper level, but not just specific to Motorist, and talk about how Content Manager, how CM8 got to case management. If we think back, I know a number of the people on the phone have been CM8 customers for a long time. And if we think back to the turn of the century, the e-client has been around that long. The e-client was introduced in 2001, so it's a 13-year-old client, and most users are still using the e-client. There's been other clients that have come out, so, and the client is really what all of our users think of when they think of CM8. There's some powerful repositories and powerful engines behind the system, but our users get to interact with the client. And so if our users are looking at the e-client as the way that they do business, and they are also going on the web doing other work or games or whatever they're experiencing outside of the e-client, they're seeing this is really old technology, and in their head it feels really clunky, and shouldn't we have something that's more 21st century? And they're right. There's been replacement clients that have come out. Webby came out in 2006, but it didn't have the same features as the e-client. The first client that's really been the potential of replacing the e-client was Content Navigator, and it didn't come out until 2011. So most customers are still having their users using the e-client, which results in, over time, a lot of frustration from those end users, as well as a need for a lot of customization, and that's really a double-edged sword. The customization allowed them to get more benefits out of it, but has also led to where it's harder for them to get off of the client. So we need to implement something that's going to allow them to do business in a more customized way, something that matches their role specifically, not something that is just pushing everybody into the same user interface. And that's where Case Manager comes into play. So the history of Case Manager on CM8 is a bit more recent than the e-client or the history of CM8 itself. Case Manager was built to provide fast deployment of enterprise content management solutions. It allows your business analysts to design and build solutions and deploy with little IT integration. So you don't have to just go to IT every time that you want something changed for a user screen, or you want a new route in a workflow, you want a new task overall to accomplish something. Business analysts can do a lot of that work and make it rapid deployment for that solution. This was one of the first joint development efforts once after IBM purchased FileNet. One of the first major new applications that came out that used IBM CM8 as a repository and used FileNet as a repository and took advantage of those underlying capabilities and added onto it that fast deployment, that advanced case management. One of the first development efforts that IBM did to tie all of those systems together. First came out in 2011. And the support for CM8 was released in 2012, so it's been available for a while. But as we've been all saying here today, it hasn't been implemented until Motorists in a live customer environment ready to be used for production. And so it's now at that point. We're here in 2014. Implemented, ready to be used for production, and 2014 is also bringing us support for the latest version of Case Manager 5.2, which sits on top of Content Navigator, one of those user interfaces that I mentioned before. The latest user interface for Content Manager is now also the user interface for Case Manager, and so that's where we're at with 2014. Everything's come together as the case management working in the same user interface that we can provide for just basic search and retrieve of content. We can provide that same user interface for all of our CM8 users that are needing case management as well. Case management can allow each role, each user that at any particular step of a case process to see the user interface the way they need to see it. Using widgets, we can arrange things on the screen and configure what we want to be on that screen. So if I need a document, I have that document presented to me. If I need a list of documents that are associated with this case, I see all of those. If I need metadata that I'm supposed to change, I see that with a read-write access. If I just need metadata that I am supposed to look at and make my business decision, but I'm not supposed to make changes to, show it to me in a read-only format. If there's stuff that I'm not supposed to see, don't show it to me at all. All very customized to where I'm at and what my role is at each step of the particular process. And when I say customized, I really should say configurable, because it's not programming to make that happen. It's my business analyst that's going to build the solution and make those decisions as to what I see, what I don't see, even connections into external systems as maybe a website widget that's on my page. So all of that can be built for what I need to see. Managing business cases, not individual documents, is another key benefit that Case Manager brings to CM8. With the CM8 document routing, we've had always the ability to start a document on a process and send it down routes, potentially conditional routes, where we have that document going through a number of steps for approval or whatever your process is, but it's always been document-centric. Case management uses documents. Documents can be the trigger to start a case, can initiate actions in a case, but documents are not what's definitely driving the case, and it's not a one-to-one relationship anymore. With case management, we may have a case or a case task that has no specific document associated with it, or we may have a case that we're gathering a number of documents. So everything about an underwriting process, the application itself, the credit checks and the DMV checks, and all those documents can be gathered and stored about a case, for my example of an underwriting case, together so that they're moving along, and everybody that sees their step of the case has access to that entire packet. We're no longer just sending a piece of paper from user to user, we're sending the entire manila folder that represents that case. The single administration for user experience goes back to what I keep mentioning, business analyst. The business analyst can administer the user interface and keep track of what different roles, what different people need to be able to see with that. There's more searchability. I can search a case, not just search documents. There's configurable workflow. A typical CM8 document routing process is a single task in a case management solution. And a case management solution can be built up of multiple tasks that we pull together to address the entire life cycle of the case. And what we're really doing with case management is empowering the business so that we're bringing those people within the business analysts and the business stakeholders in to get involved in building the case solution that's going to serve their business, not just them telling IT and now being out of their hands what's actually created. They're actually actively participating in the building of the case. Case management also extends the reporting capabilities, adds some additional tools for extensive reporting, and adds content analytics to be able to dig into the context and the body of what's in those multiple documents that are a part of the case to see the rest of the details beyond just what we're looking at with the metadata associated with a document. So some advanced capabilities just come as add-on capabilities with Case Manager. The architecture considerations for Case Manager in a CM8 environment, there's a lot of underpinnings that are the same for the Case Manager environment than as the CM8 environment. Case Manager runs on WebSphere, can use DB2, can actually use some other databases, so it's not a requirement to have the same database, but it can use the same database and the same WebSphere as CM8. In the diagram that we have on the screen here, in the bottom block, we have the CM8 environment, which is our CM8 4.3 or higher version of CM8 8.5. Adds some nice capabilities that if you're looking at implementing Case Manager, I'd recommend implementing, and you need to upgrade CM8, you're not already at 8.4.3, I'd say let's move to 8.5 right now. The database is a question. Do you have that as the same database environment, and we're just adding additional databases in your current DB2 environment, or do you want to keep the case databases separate? It's up to you. Is it the same WebSphere environment or a different WebSphere? In fact, at Motorists we added WebSphere ND for Case Manager. Don't have that for CM8, but we're setting the stage so that Motorists is thinking ahead so that at the point that they add that HA environment for CM8, Case Manager is already going to be there. The Case Manager up on the top of the diagram uses FileNet P8 as the underlying repository for the cases. The CM8 environment still is the repository for all your documents. There are a number of things I've mentioned there that can be the same, can be different, like your WebSphere, your database, your operating system for case management versus CM8 can be different, and in fact is at Motorist. One thing that needs to be the same, so I circled it in red, is your LDAP server. We need to make sure that the way that we're authenticating users into CM8 is the same way that we're going to authenticate users into Case Management. And so that's a consideration that we need to look at, make sure that there may be an upgrade to your authentication, your LDAP, that needs to happen before you implement Case Management.
I was going to say, Dwight, that diagram, it looks complicated. It's not really complicated. It might be complex, but it's not complicated if you look at it like from a high level, draw it out, and make your plan. It's part of the planning process to make sure that all your pieces and parts are at the right level, that they all talking to each other, all the fixed packs are installed, and when you have that and it's a clear picture, it doesn't seem so daunting, does it?
Right. And that diagram was showing details that the IT folks on the phone will want to know those details of the web application server environment and the databases. But that's all from a user standpoint. There's really only one thing that they're seeing in the end is the case user interface or the CM8 user interface.
I have one comment. This is Jared. I have one comment to make here. I'm a big fan and a big believer of iterative and incremental development. For a transformational initiative, though, such as this, there's always, if you're prudent, there's always a level of intentional architecture that needs to take place in advance. It all can't be emergent design. That was one of the things that we didn't go far enough with when it came to this initiative. So I would make sure that, like, when you look at Dwight's diagram, that's the type of thing that you want to put together at that level and kind of start to understand, where things connect, what's required, what are we going to have to do. I recommend that you do that. It'll be very helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And in the end, what we get with Case Manager in a CM8 environment actually it gives us some advantages that from a performance and a separation of duty standpoint, that having the dark blue blocks up there at the top, potentially using a separate database, a separate WebSphere environment, having Case Manager in its own environment, and your content management, your CM8 in its separate repository, gives you as CM8 customers the advantage of anything that we add with case management can be set over here in its own processor, its own environment, not impacting what we're already doing with CM8. So we can just enhance what we're doing for that new department that we're going to add case management to. They get those new features, but everybody else doesn't suffer because we haven't changed the way that we're configuring our CM8 environment. We're just adding this new case management environment on top of that, or to the side of that.
And so really, when you think about it, you're in an enviable position, because someone that's greenfield, that doesn't have an ECM platform already but wants to do case management and has to start from scratch, has a lot to learn, an awful lot to learn. So administratively, you already understand this platform. You've had it for a while. You've got all of your talent pool, in the right places, and you've got the right resources, and you know what to expect of it. So really, to lay down a case management system in conjunction with that, really it's in a much more enviable position than if you had to just start from scratch, because that would be really transformational.
Yeah. And that leads us to, you're already in that good position. You've got CM8, you've got the infrastructure for your content management in place. What makes a CM8 implementation of Case Manager unique? The first thing is and here there's a number of details that we could get into here. Here I'm just going to talk at some of the technical details. That the CM8 document types are reused in Case Manager versus being built in Case Manager. If CM8 wasn't in the play, that everything is built inside of Case Manager. And the double-edged sword there is you don't, as a business analyst, have the ability to create your own item type or document type. But the advantage is not to your business analyst, but it's to your CM8 administrator, that they own the taxonomy and they can manage those document types and make sure that everything's being used consistently and the same throughout the organization. Mapping document attributes from CM8 to case management actually is done outside of the case builder. So I talked about how great it is that the business analyst can build the solution and can build the solution customized to the user's roles. But there are some things like mapping document attributes into a case attribute that does require IT to get involved, and it's not programming, but it's deeper configuration that needs to be done. That's outside of what typically we expect to see a business analyst do. There are some CM8 add-ons that are required. They don't impact the performance of CM8, so I didn't mention them when I said how you're using your current CM8 environment separately. But there are some event handlers and additional case manager privilege sets that are added to CM8. So again, a reason that you need to have that CM8 administrator involved up front, because we are going to impact them directly. We're going to be touching their system and making some changes to that to allow it to be used for case management. And I kind of talked to the last points here, but I want to reinforce it, that the case objects are what we're using to manage that, we've got this case going through a business process or multiple tasks within a case process. Those case objects are stored in FileNet, which is underneath of Case Manager. Our content repository is storing the documents. So we don't clutter up our content repository by adding case objects. We're keeping those over there in the Case Manager area.
Just wanted to make this offer to you as a premier ECM partner with IBM, and the experience that we just went through with the Motorists group. It was very telling and very learning for us, and so what we'd like to do is to share that experience with any of you that have a gleam in your eye for ICM. Introduce, take the opportunity if you're in IT to go to your business and say, hey, I got something I can offer you. I've got a platform that serves you well, but I can expand it and extend it to meet your business needs. And we'll be more than happy. We live to come out and do a presentation and a demo for you, for your business stakeholders, or even for your IT leadership. We'll walk the business through the maturity curve and help them understand why this is no longer bleeding edge. We can, help them understand the capabilities that can be added to that major investment that was probably made a long time ago to solve one particular business challenge. A lot of times these platforms are just there, and they're sitting there doing their job and serving the business well, but it's unknown to a lot of people how much more it can do for you. We'll come along and do that operational walkthrough. We'll perform a basic proof of concept, come back and do a custom demo to help your business stakeholders understand in your vernacular, in your nomenclature, with your documents and your particular case challenges. We'd be more than happy to help you. And on a closing note, been there, done that. And I think we can safely say that with the lessons learned here, working with Motorists and with IBM, that we'd love an opportunity to be of service. Anybody have any questions?
Actually, I have one more statement before you do that.
Okay.
Not to steal the last word, but Motorists as an organization believes very strongly in partnerships and relationships. And on that note, I'm going to ask Stephanie if you would include my contact information. If anyone has questions that they would like to direct to me, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
On behalf of the Dayhuff Group, IBM, and the Motorists Group, we really appreciate your time today. We know it's precious, and feel free, like I said, to reach out to us if you have any questions. Have a super day, and thanks again for your time. Bye now.